Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be checking out a video that was recommended today, and in the recommendation it is said Europe and Trump tariffs. However, the link for the video that was recommended is titled Trump's 50% tariffs bombshell. The EU has three options. I thought the tariffs was over with. But this video is one day ago. Like, I genuinely thought that the tariffs were over with because, like, it did the economy really bad. And you ain't got to be into politics to actually know that it messed up the economy, worldwide, like really, really bad, and it was a bad phase about a month ago. It was really, really bad. But I thought all of this went on pause, but however, it seems as if it's, still going on. So yeah, let's check out this video and learn the tariff situation that's going on between Europe and the United States. If you guys have any recommendations, you can leave those in the comment section, or preferably click that link in the pinned comment section where you can recommend videos directly using a Google form, and I'll check them out as soon as possible. Without further ado, let's check out this video.
Just when it looked like stability was finally creeping back in. China tariffs down to around 30%. A deal with the UK, done. And Trump actually sounding optimistic about a deal with the EU just a week ago. Well, that was until yesterday, because on Truth Social, Trump dropped a bombshell, a 50% tariff on EU goods coming into the US. And in an interview right after, he once again made it very clear how he feels about the EU.
I've been saying to everybody, they've treated us very badly over the years. It was formed in order to hurt the United States, in order to take advantage of the United States, and they've done that. We have a big deficit with them.
I'm not European, obviously. I don't know much about the EU. Some of you guys do know I do live in Finland now, right? However, if there's one thing I've known about the EU, the European Union, it's because you guys want to have trade free, where you guys can work, let's say in Germany, and you go to the Netherlands and you can work or live there, travel. Isn't that what the EU is created for? Like, I have no idea why Donald Trump would unfortunately think that the EU was created to hurt the United States. I really don't know why. But yeah, I thought it was something to keep Europe strong, because of the wars that you guys always had.
Now, just to be very clear, no, the EU was not created to screw over the United States. And for any MAGA watchers out there, you can click the video above for the actual story of how the EU was created. Spoiler, it had a lot more to do with avoiding war than annoying America. So why this sudden 50% tariff? When asked whether the EU could do anything about it, Trump replied,
I'm not looking for a deal. I mean, we've set the deal, it's at 50%. But again, there is no tariff if they build their plant here. Now, if somebody comes in and wants to build a plant here, I can talk to them about a little bit of a delay. But, while they're building their plant, which is something I think that would be appropriate, maybe.
So, officially, it's about bringing manufacturing back to the US. But unofficially, there might be more going on. According to the European Council on Foreign Relations, Trump's demands reflect deep US frustration with the EU's calm bureaucratic style, clashing with his love for flashy quick deals, even if they don't amount to much. The Council also highlights a lack of clarity in US trade goals. Does Washington want the EU to cut ties with China, buy more American LEG, or US weapons? No one really knows. And there's tension on food standards too. The EU Trade Commissioner recently said that EU rules on agriculture are not up for negotiation. This came after US complaints about Brussels blocking hormone-treated meat and chicken. To be honest, thank God we do. And then there's Greenland. Yes, Greenland just signed a minerals deal with European countries. Probably not a highlight of Trump's week. The EU is simply not really backing down, and as the Trade Commissioner posted on X, EU-US relations must be built on mutual respect, not threats, which might have struck a nerve in the Trump world. So, before we look at what the EU can do next, let's talk about where things stand right now. Currently, the US has slapped 25% tariffs on EU steel, aluminium, and most infamously, cars. Everything else coming from the EU, that's sitting under a 10% tariff. But that could double to 20% on July the 8th, when Trump's 90-day pause runs out. And the EU's response? Not much yet. Back in April, the EU approved tariffs on 21 billion euros worth of American imports, targeting classic American goods. Bourbon, blue jeans, Harleys, you know the drill. But they never went into effect because Trump announced a 19-day pause on the 20% tariffs and the EU held back. But that may be about to change. 2 weeks ago, the European Commission proposed countermeasures worth around 95 billion euros in US imports if negotiations with Washington fail. This would be a direct response to Trump's car tariffs and reciprocal tariffs. The new EU list includes US aircraft, cars and car parts, medical devices, and a range of electrical equipment. Now, who gets hit hardest in Europe? Mostly Germany and the Netherlands, followed by France, Belgium, and Ireland. And even if this gets implemented in July, keep in mind, the value of these countermeasures, around 95 billion euros, is still far smaller than the 379 billion euros in EU exports affected by Trump's tariffs. But now things could escalate much faster, because apparently Trump doesn't think this is enough. And starting on June the 1st, he says he will apply a 50% tariff across the board.
Wait, hold on, June?
Now this
June tomorrow. Sometimes when I say stuff like that, people don't necessarily get what I mean. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I don't think a lot of Americans, well, to be honest, I think a lot of Americans do it, but I don't think like a lot of people really realize that they do it. But the whole situation where you're like, yeah, tomorrow, but it's really not tomorrow. It's like over exaggerating, or saying I've been here for a while, or, I've been here for a minute. You say that instead. And the minute can be, it's so weird. Oh my gosh. But anyways, I had to think about that because what I'm saying doesn't directly mean exactly what I'm thinking. But yeah, so June is pretty close, right? It's probably next week, right? So 50% straight up. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you. I honestly don't know what the Republicans have against the EU. I'm being absolutely honest. I've seen and I've watched videos, JD Vance, Donald Trump speaking about the EU, and they seem to have a lot of beef. I don't really know where it's stemming from, honestly, but something is fishy. Something is not right.
This is a big deal, because let's not forget how big this relationship is. In 2023, the United States was the EU's biggest trading partner, accounting for about 17% of all EU trade. Goods and services flowed both ways, totaling 1.6 trillion euros. That's billions crossing the Atlantic every single day. The EU exported 820 billion to the US, and the US sent 770 billion back. That's simply a massive trade partnership. So what now? What can the EU actually do? We see three options, and the first is to do nothing. In this scenario, the EU refrains from retaliation and instead pursues negotiations for tariff reductions and exemptions. The hope here? That Trump, who changes his mind every few days, will either water down the 50% tariff or make a last-minute deal to avoid disaster. But doing nothing is risky. It sends the signal that Europe can be bullied, and that's never a good position to start from. The second option is to respond with limited, targeted tariffs. This means moving more quickly to impose the 95 billion euro tariff package the Commission has already prepared, maybe even adding pressure in politically sensitive areas. For example, the EU could target soybeans from Louisiana, the home state of House Speaker Mike Johnson, a key Trump ally in Congress. But this kind of retaliation is a double-edged sword. It might look strong on paper, but in practice, it could come off as cautious or even weak. So what then? Either the EU backs down, falling back to option 1, or it escalates into the final option, a full-blown trade war. This would mean proportionate retaliation across most US imports. For example, the EU could simply respond with a flat 50% tariff, just like the US did. Yes, it would be super costly, but history shows this approach can work. China went into the trade war with tariffs going up to 135%. The US quickly backed down from its toughest China tariff once the economic pain became too real. Maybe it will happen again. And here's the thing. The EU does hold real leverage here. It could strike the US where it's especially vulnerable: services. While the EU does run a 157 billion euro trade surplus in goods, it has a 109 billion euro deficit in services, particularly in digital services, where US companies dominate. American tech giants like Google and Meta could be targeted. Then there's EU's most powerful legal weapon, the anti-coercion instrument, a newly adopted tool designed to hit back when foreign governments use economic pressure to force EU countries to change their policies. With it, the EU could do more than impose just tariffs. It could delay or deny business licenses for US firms, block access to public contracts, restrict intellectual property rights, or even ban US investments in the EU altogether. Yes, this is the nuclear option, and let's not hope it gets to that. So, those are the three options the EU...
I'm gonna go with number 3, straight up. I don't want it, but I'm gonna go with it. Like, listen, it's a fist fight, and you just gotta bring the fist out. You know, it's a fist fight. You can't just be blocking. You know what I mean? You can't just be doing that. You gotta bring the fist out. If it's a fist fight, we just gotta fist fight. It's just as simple as that. I love the United States. I've always loved the United States. But it's just as simple as this, okay? If somebody's going to give you a trade war, you just got to fight it back with another trade war. You know what I mean? Like, initiate, I'm going to just participate. You know what I mean? Initiation, participation, it's as simple as that. But it's unfortunate because we're the ones who are going to suffer for, we, the consumers, are the ones who are going to suffer. Not the, rich guys. The rich guys are going to be totally fine. They might lose a little bit, a couple of billions, couple of millions, but they're good. They're good because they can easily get back up once everything is back in place. We stuck, right? So we're the ones who are going to feel the brunt of this. But at the end of the day, you do nothing, you're a punk. Targeted tariffs, I don't really think that, especially with the little bean example that he gave with Louisiana, I don't see that working. I'm just being honest. Yeah, Americans do love their beans, but come on now, you can easily substitute that for something else. So a full trade war is likely what is going to affect the United States just as much as the EU. It might not affect the United States as much as the EU. It probably would be like a 25% to a 40% situation. But at the end of the day, it still is going to affect the United States. And maybe at the end of the day, there can be some arguments, get somewhere there in a nice range for both parties and come to a conclusion and the 50 gets reduced. It's as simple as that. But it sucks. I really don't know what's going on with the Republicans. They have it, they don't like the EU. And I don't know why, right? But you guys can let me know if you know anything. But all I can say is I've seen them targeting the EU and saying a lot of things about the EU, and I don't know why.
Currently has. And here's how I see it. This is turning into a waiting game, a test of political stamina. Will EU leaders stay united long enough to apply real pressure? Or will some start to break ranks and cut side deals with Trump? And on the other hand, how long until Trump is forced into a U-turn by a weakening US economy and once again a dropping stock market? Let's not forget, the last trade war with China escalated super fast and then abruptly de-escalated. Maybe we're headed for the same pattern here. That's why, in my view, the most likely outcome will fall somewhere between option 2 and 3. I could imagine the EU hitting back with targeted tariffs on planes and cars, maybe combining that with regulatory pressure on US digital giants, through tools like the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act. But honestly, it all feels a bit insane, doesn't it? Trump won't coordinate further sanctions on Russia, yet he's perfectly happy slapping a 50% tariff on Europe the very same week. It really does make you wonder, who are Trump's actual allies? Thank you so much for watching, and please like the video and subscribe to...
Hey, that final statement there, boy. That final statement gonna go over a lot of heads, but that final statement, because I was going throughout this video and I was saying a pretty much similar thing in my head. I'm like, the way how Donald Trump and the Republicans are, targeting the EU, saying that they were created, to be against the United States, sounds a little bit like, I don't want to say this, but it sounds like a Eastern propaganda. It literally sounds like that. Like, literally, like, those are the exact words that were said when Sweden and Finland joined NATO. So, hey, it really begs the question. It really makes you wonder, like, who is the allies for real? You know, it's a shitty situation, but hey, you guys can let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section down below. I do believe this is likely going to end up in a good state eventually, because when you're getting hurt, like, it's a fist fight. Like I said, if you put your fist down, it's a fist fight. You're the only one getting punched. Eventually, the opponent is gonna put their fist down, right? But they're gonna look at you as a punk eventually, right? You put your fist up, you put 2 punches in there. Guess what? They're gonna be like, "Oh, you got little moves, right?" But you put your fist back down. It's not good enough. But you up in that fight, you just boom, 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 boom. They throw, you throw. You know, eventually both parties are gonna settle and just call it quits. You know what I mean? So I think it's definitely gonna be number 3, and probably an agreement with a lower percentage is gonna be, you know, handled probably by the end of the year, I hope. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts and feedbacks in the comment section down below. And yeah, I'm out of here. Peace.